We are back on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, and now in Albuquerque, New Mexico on 1000 KKIM. Our guest by phone is one of the members of the greatest generation, my father, George Bullied, who was a Canadian soldier in World War II and in the Korean War. So, Dad, we were talking a little bit about Twin Valleys, and you were talking about the fathers and coming to grip with fathers. Do you think your generation, because of your experiences, having gone through the Depression and the war and everything, do you think, and actually your father's the same way with, World War I and having to go through Depression, do you think they were tougher on kids and not, as affectionate as say, my generation might have been with their children?
No, I don't think so.
Really? Okay.
I think that our generation had to go to it. They had to, say this is our life, and we're going to learn how to live it. Mm-hmm. And when we do that, we can pass that on to our children and our children's children.
Okay, so you think, and I agree with that your generation had that stick-to-itiveness, they had the value system where they were going to build a much better world than the one that they were handed.
Right.
Yeah. Do you feel that subsequent generations are doing the same thing, or are things just handed to them?
Well, that's an interesting question. But to me, I had to see that what we were formulating was new, was fascinating, was exciting, and it was a new life in a new world, in a new heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And we formulated that.
Sure. Now, do you think that my generation or your grandkids' generation has that same capability, or are things just handed to them?
I don't know that. I'll tell you though that the people that I know now, and we've formulated a world of our own, and we have begin to build that and starting to make it into something very marvelous that we could pass that on to our children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what your children do with it, is a different thing entirely. When you had Twin Valleys as a counselor up there, how many people did you have at any one point? I'm thinking, if I remember right, 80, 100, somewhere in there at any one time. Is that about right? That you were?
I would think about 100.
About 100? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And and that was there for quite a number of years. So you did a lot of counseling there. And at that time, you'd written a couple books on counseling, and so you were out there quite a bit at that time.
You know something? We had to learn how to live.
Right.
And we had to keep an open mind and an open heart and a willingness to step in there and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the marvelous parts of our generation.
Sure.
And when we did this, we said, "Here am I, Father, and win, lose, or draw, we are going to make a life for ourselves that's wonderful."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's happened.
Yeah, and you're right. That is wonderful. It's amazing that you guys were able to do that, considering the experiences that you had to go through. Our guest by phone is one of the members of the greatest generation, my dad, George Bullied, who was a Canadian soldier in World War II and the Korean War. So, excuse me, you fought for the little guys up there in Canada, not the big guys down here in the United States, right?
Well, I tell you, we may have had to be around to teach a few things to Those guys.
Do you think being in the military, your experience in the military, and I know you and I have talked about this off and on over the years, do you think that experience is part of what made your generation so successful? The fact that you had that experience, even though a lot of it was tough, but being in the military, you've learned a lot of values and learned how to get things done.
Well, we had to learn how to have an open mind, an open heart, and a willingness to step right out into it and make it happen. And our children benefit from that.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the lessons that important lessons that we can learn from your generation?
Well, I think that we had to have an open heart and an open mind, and we had to be able to take that into all the activities that were starting to emerge out of this world of ours. And we knew that if we can once start to do that, and we can pass that on to another generation, that we've really added something to our lives and pass it on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's a wonderful way to live,
Sure. And when you consider where you started, going through the Depression and World War II, I know some of the subjects talking about the war are a little sensitive, and still, 60 some odd years later, it's the memories are tough and the visions are there, and it's not anything that you really ever get over.
I'll tell you what, it really made us advanced people. That's a strange thing to say, I know, but it really did. We knew that we had to put down and go to work and put the very best we had into our life and our living.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we did that.
Yeah. There's a great line from a movie called Uncommon Value. It's Gene Hackman as a Korean War veteran, and I think it was Scott Harris as a Vietnam veteran. And the Vietnam veteran is still trying to, he's still going through the ghosts and the memories and still trying to come to grips with it. And he asks Hackman, the Korean veteran, does it ever go away? He said, no, you just finally come to peace with them, and they end up being friends, because the memories will never go away, but yet you just have to learn to live with them like anything else.
It's what life really is all about. Mm-hmm. Here am I, and I'm going to give it the very best that I've got.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we did that.
Yeah, I think you did too, Dad. I think you did incredible. When I look back at your history, your generation's history, but I look back at your history, and you had a lot of things that you had to work through. You had some family issues you had to work through with your father, and throw that on top of a depression and a couple of wars, and it's something you just need to work through. And I think the greatest generation did that, and they created a world in the 60s and the 70s that was absolutely incredible. And
God bless.
God bless. I wanted to close with a little something. One of my favorite books is a book by Joshua Chamberlain called Passing of the Armies. He wrote it in 1950. He was the hero of Little Round Top in Gettysburg. And in 1915, his generation, the Civil War generation, was dying off. And in the beginning of his book, he says, history is mostly written from the outside. But to get the view from the inside, you need to talk to the people who actually were there. So you really need to talk to the people who were a part of making that history. And looking at the World War II generation, those are walking history books. So we still have that opportunity with the few remaining members we have of that generation to learn what made them tick and what made them the greatest generation that I think we've ever seen in this world. Thanks for joining the show. And from Clay and I want to thank you all for the incredible support we've had this year. It's been a great year. And we'll see you next year in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business on Current Radio, News Talk 1180.